You're listening to the Snob OS podcast, the podcast for Apple snobs. Yo, this is Terrence Gaines, aka Brother Tech.
And this is Nika Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva.
And welcome back to the Snob OS show, the show for Apple snobs, where we talk all things Apple and then some. We are back with another episode. This is episode 254 of the Snob OS cast. And like we always do, we always want to thank everybody for listening for this long. 254 episodes is a lot of episodes. And there have been some people that have been hanging with us ever since day one. So we definitely want to say thank you to those people. Continue to share, continue to rate, review, tell a friend, all that good stuff. If you feel like you want to financially back the show, you know, of course, we want to let you do that as well. Yeah, exactly. So if you go to patreon.com/SnobOScast, become a member. And just as a thank you for becoming a member, you get access to the show live. That means you get the show a little bit early, as well as exclusive content that you will not find on this show. And that's our way of saying thank you for supporting the show financially and giving you your money's worth. So we definitely want to extend that to anybody that's interested. So let's get right into the show. We always start off with the lowdown. And like I said, I've always been a fan or a potential fan of AR, VR headsets if they're going to give me the experience of attending something live, especially as it relates to sports. I call myself a casual sports fan. I'm not a diehard. I don't have a diehard team, you know, but, you know, every once in a while I may want to go to a game, but I don't necessarily want to deal with all the extras that come with going to a game. So I've always been a fan or a potential fan of AR VR that would fill that gap to give me that game-like experience without actually having to go to the game. So it sounds like Apple is trying to get there with their Vision Pro. And what they've done is they have released, or they're going to release, a film showcasing the 2023 MLS Cup Playoffs. The film was captured in 8K 3D with a 180-degree field of view with spatial audio, according to Apple. So kind of Apple knew that the Vision Pro was coming out. They also knew that this might be a good avenue for sports. So the MLS Cup Playoffs of 2023. So the season ended in, when did it end? Did it end in, I want to say November. I think it ended.
I think so.
Atlanta United, we got to, I want to say the quarterfinals or the semifinals. I can't remember, but we lost to Columbus. But anyway, all that to say.
But we won it before.
Yes. I think I want to say back in 2017, 2018. I think we won it.
It sounds like we're right. Yeah.
Yeah. But all that to say, this past season, Apple recorded a bunch of content in 8K 3D with 180-degree field of view and spatial audio, almost as we know we're going to put this on the Vision Pro. So now they've got that film, they've got that footage. Now the Vision Pro is out. So now they're going to release this video. It's not going to be a full game, but it probably will be game footage, but it'll be, you know, all kind of content surrounding the game. And you'll be able to take advantage of this with this Apple Vision Pro. Now, the reason why I put this out here is because, one, like I mentioned, I would definitely see a value in AR VR headsets if the sports content gives me that lifelike experience. But maybe people may not feel that way, or they aren't sure if it's possible. So Apple releasing this video, in my opinion, they're saying, all right, well, let's show you the type of content that you can capture and show us kind of the content that you can watch when it's, of course, recorded correctly. And you're watching it using spatial audio, spatial video, 3D, 8K, all of that stuff. So it's almost like a teaser, in my opinion, on what we can do with the Vision Pro when everything is together. So I just wanted to get your opinions on, you know, Apple doing this. Is this tease with this video for the MLS Cup of, even though it's soccer, there's not a lot of people who watch soccer. I mean, people watch
Mhm.
soccer, but it's not on the same level as NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB, right?
Not in the US. Yeah.
But Apple, of course, they've got the exclusive rights to the MLS. So, of course, they're going to pump up the MLS, which personally, like I said, I think it's entertaining. I've been to a couple games this past year, and it's entertaining front to back. So, I definitely encourage more people to look at soccer, specifically, MLS. But Apple was like, all right, well, we'll do that too. So I just want to get your take on, will this work with MLS, and will this give people, reason to believe that spending this much money on a Vision Pro will potentially be worth it if this kind of content is available?
I think it's twofold because I think there's been a lot of talk about people, getting the Vision Pro for quote unquote clout to, do their videos and they send them back and people aren't quite sure what to do with it, what's going on. I think what this video does is it gives people a tangible, real world thing that they can connect to. Whether you like basketball, soccer, American football, bowling, tennis, whatever it is, most people like some sort of sporting type event. And what this shows is, hey, soccer is one of the biggest sports in the world. It's not as big in the States, but in the world, it's huge. And I think it's smart of them, especially since they own the rights to MLS, that they say, hey, look, people, if you're really into soccer like this, which a lot of people are, this is one of the things that you can do with Vision Pro. We're giving you a hint. We're giving you a preview of what's to come with Vision Pro and what you can do as far as not only this sport, but if we can do it with soccer, we can definitely do it with other sports as well. So I think it's one of those things where they're trying to kind of pull people in who are still on the fence about what exactly is this technology. Is it worth me spending $4,000 on? And I think this gives people a real tangible type of a view. It gives them something to kind of latch onto to say, okay, this may be something I'm into.
All right. And if you are interested, of course, you need an MLS season pass subscription to watch the film. You can pay for that $15 a month or pay $99 per season, which I may just do next season. I'm not going to do it right now, but when MLS starts back up, I'm okay with a one-time fee. I'm subscriptioned out. But if you tell me what the one-time fee is and not have to worry about the subscription, just for the sake of not worrying about a subscription, I may just do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's an option. And like I said, I think it does open it up for people who, like you, are like, I want VR, AR, but I want it in a more practical way for entertainment, not just productivity and doing work, because there's more to my life than just doing work. I want to have some fun with stuff. So yeah.
All right. Speaking of sports, our next story, Apple has launched its sports app. And basically what the sports app, new iPhone, of course, I think it's just iPhone, maybe iPad as well, but right now it's called Apple Sports, giving users a one-stop location to check scores, team stats, betting odds, of course, and more across a number of major sports leagues. The app supports the NBA, NHL, NCAA, Premier League, and several other leagues at launch, including MLS. The soccer league, Apple has exclusive streaming rights to. So we just talked about MLS, but the sports app will give you the ability to track sports and scores through a number of leagues, including Premier League, which is the English soccer league, and of course MLB, NHL, NCAA, NBA, and the MLS. They didn't mention NFL. I'm not sure if that's somebody else has the rights to do NFL sports and scores. Maybe that's just a left out part, but this is more up my alley. Simply because I'm not a fanatic. I'm not a diehard, but I do keep up, right? So to be able to look and see, this team is beating that team. Well, I'll actually have to be involved and go turn on the TV and go watch it and go check for the scores. I can quickly go on the sports app and just see the scores or whatever the case may be. I said, betting odds. They don't say you can bet on the sports app, but they do give you betting odds. So the probability of this team beating this team, the probability of this person doing these many points, all those probabilities will be in the sports app, but you won't be able to bet on it. But the reason why I said, when I said betting odds, is because it seems like everything, every sport, every commercial, every break, they are pushing
talking about
sports betting, which is so not ironic, but then so kind of weird to say, bet sports, bet sports, bet sports. If you have a gambling
because it used
problem,
to be taboo, right? Remember, it was like, oh, we don't want to talk about that.
But not only that, it's like they say, bet sports, bet sports, bet sports, bet sports. If you have a gambling problem, please call this number. We take bet gambling seriously. I'm like, all right, if you take it seriously,
Gamblers Anonymous,
right? If you take it seriously, don't let the people bet. But capitalism. I digress.
Yeah. And I think this is kind of cool. I normally use the ESPN app just to kind of see what's going on, and it kind of gives you an all, kind of at glance, but then you have like the news stuff. So this is kind of, I think this would be more convenient where it just gives you like sports
specific
scores.
Sports.
Yeah.
Because in the news,
and you can do that on the ESPN app, but you have to go in and select all the stuff. And it's kind of clunky to me. The ESPN app.
You still have to do that with the Apple Sports app. You got to pick your favorite team, pick your favorite league, pick your favorite sport, that sort of thing.
Okay.
But what makes this specific is you can kind of do that in the news app, but it's not fully featured. The Apple Sports app will be fully featured, more featured and more sports specific than the news app, which is ideally news, news articles, blog posts, things of that nature. And they've kind of thrown in sports as well. This way I can just go get the sports specific.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, this kind of goes to my idea of Apple doing AI. This is a way for them to collect more information in order to, whenever Apple announces their AI, I can then go on and say, let's just say if it's tied into Siri, I can say, Siri, who won between the Washington Commanders and the, Philadelphia Eagles? And not only will it just tell me the score, it'll give me, if I want, different player stats, it'll give me all that information versus just giving me the score, which is all it can kind of do right now.
So does it give you any news in this, or is it just strictly scores and stats?
It doesn't say anything about news. It just says sports and stats. For the most part.
That's good. It keeps it pretty streamlined. Like I said, with the ESPN app, it gives you can watch stuff live. You can do news. It's all kind of mixed in. But the other thing is it's a separate app. Do you just get it from the App Store? I'm looking through the article and I don't see what it says.
I went to the Apple App Store and put in sports and downloaded the sports app. So it wasn't anything that was released in an update. It wasn't a big rollout or anything else. I just saw in the news that Apple has a sports app. I was like, all right, well, I went to the App Store and downloaded the sports app.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, because typically like apps that are like native to Apple like this, they release them in they just show up on your phone, or it comes a part of an iOS update. So I was like, how do you get this? Okay.
Nope. And I will say I kind of played around with it a little bit. It's not fully populated yet. So they're still, and maybe that's because sports right now is in a lull. Right now you just got the NBA going on right now, and that's pretty much it. Spring training is about to start up with baseball. We're just got done with NFL. NBA is at the All-Star break, so they're kind of like, there's not a lot of content
and
yet.
That's actually smart to do it when it's kind of a lull, to make sure you get all the kinks out before it goes full throttle. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So moving on to the next story I got. It seems like people are still trying to get over on Apple, and these two Chinese nationals, it ain't working so much in the end. Now they got away with it for a little while, but it looks like Apple has caught on, and there's two Chinese nationals face up to 20 years in prison for counterfeit iPhone repair scheme. So basically what they would do, these two Chinese nationals were trying to use 5,000 counterfeit iPhones to dupe Apple into replacing them with real products. So basically what they would do is they would get the counterfeits from wherever they get them from. I'm assuming China, since they're Chinese nationals.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming that's a safe assumption, but
That's what I would assume.
they would get the counterfeit iPhones from wherever they get them shipped from. They would get them shipped to different UPS, FedEx locations around DC. I think it was around Washington, DC. And they would pick up all these phones. And over the course of a couple of years, they would go into the Apple store and say, hey, something's wrong with these phones. Not, maybe like one or two at a time.
Right.
And say something's wrong with this phone, and then kind of urge or lobby Apple
to get a new phone,
to honor the return policy or whatever the case may be. They would get fake SIM numbers. They would get fake phone numbers, and it would just enough to get a real phone. So basically they were able to do this for over 2,700 of the counterfeit iPhones.
Wow.
Right. Of course, an Apple brand investigator caught on to the scheme, realizing the fake parts and deceptive serial numbers, notified law enforcement. They scooped up these two Chinese nationals, both around their early 30s, and were convicted of mail fraud and conspiracy to commit mail fraud. Each faces a maximum of 20 years in prison, with their sentencing scheduled for June 21st. Now, I'm pretty sure they won't do 20 years, but whatever they get,
just the thought of it, of you could be getting that, is like insane.
Is a long time for some counterfeit iPhones. But it seems like as much as Apple tries to make their devices counterfeit free and try to protect them with security and try to lock them down as much as they can and give users all these tools in order to track down and find and get their devices, still they say a sucker is born every minute. A crook is born every minute and a half.
and the thing is, with criminals, they run the game too long. You got to realize when to cut it off. Yeah, you got to realize, you know what? Probably at 1,000 phones, they were like, look, we ain't got caught at 1,000 phones. Let's cut and run. No, let's keep going. That's where criminality goes wrong. You run the game too long.
Or you get too greedy.
Yeah, too greedy.
Not to speculate, to put myself in their shoes. This would have been a 20-year operation that spanned all of the United States and maybe Mexico, because I would have been too paranoid to keep doing it in my little area or one specific area. I'd have been in Ohio, Wyoming, Colorado, LA, New Mexico.
The United States is large. Let's do a little bit everywhere.
I'd have been all over the country, but apparently these guys was doing it in the same areas. And like you said, they got away with over half of the devices. I would have called it a day.
Not gonna push my luck because we're already doing illegal things here.
Most people quit the illegal game when they finally get caught.
Yep.
Learn the lesson.
It's too late.
Learn the lesson of everybody else before you and get out early. Yeah. Cut your losses. Get out. But I guess they didn't. They pressed their luck and got hemmed up.
They got lulled into a false sense of security. They're like 2,700 phones and we still hadn't got caught. Let's keep running it up.
And was probably went from taking in one at a time to taking in two at a time to taking in four at a time. Probably got up to as many as 5 and 7 devices coming in one Apple store and saying, all these devices are broke. I need y'all to replace all of them. Somebody was like, nah.
How many phones do you really need, sir?
Right. And wasn't you in here just last week?
Yeah. Not smart.
All right. So moving on to the last story in the lowdown, iPad Pro rumors. Now I know you were looking forward to seeing what Apple comes up with to see if this is something you may get. Right now, all we have is rumors as far as the next iPad Pro. There's rumors that a spring event in March is going to announce some hardware. Most people are saying that is where the new iPad Pro will launch. But right now, all we have is rumors of what we think the features are going to be in the iPad Pro. So while I'm not going to, figure out what rumors we think are real, which ones are fake, I'm going to do something different and ask you, what do you want to see of all of the rumors out right now, which ones do you want to see the most? Right now, they've rumored that there's going to be a OLED screen. The bezel or the whole entire iPad is going to be thinner. They've also talked about people have requested a longer battery. There's nothing in the rumors that say the battery is going to be longer or last longer, but that's what people are requesting. And there was one thing that I was like, there may be something there to a better iPad with a better screen, thinner bezel, longer battery, and no rear camera, because who uses the camera to take photos or videos on an iPad? People do
the
it.
aunties and the uncles.
I know
they
people
have their
do it.
iPad out there and they're recording with that thing.
But if you could replace the camera on an iPad with a better battery, with a better screen, would you do it? So that's kind of what I'm getting to. Out of all the rumors, or just in general, if you have a personal request, what do you want to see in the upcoming rumored iPad Pro?
So I'm definitely down for the OLED screen. I think it's time. A thinner bezel. They're already pretty thin. So my concern with that is the durability. That kind of gives me a little bit of cause for pause. Longer battery. Yeah, it just depends on if you're like a power user. I'm not a power user with mine, so the battery life stays pretty well. I don't really have any complaints about my battery life. Now, the no rear camera thing, that gives me a little bit of pause because we all know how front-facing cameras cannot be the greatest. So if they're going to get rid of the rear camera, then they really, really need to put some significant effort into making sure that the front-facing camera is really good. It has high resolution. It's a lot of times when you're using the front-facing camera, if you're taking pictures or selfies or whatever you're doing with it, it distorts. Anytime you use the front-facing camera, it always distorts the image. So if they are able to work through, those type of distortion issues, then okay. But yeah, I don't know. The no rear camera, unless they can really upgrade the front-facing camera, that's kind of iffy to me. As you know, I like for my devices to match. So being a little superficial, if they could maybe give me like a gold or, a rose gold colored something or other. They've done like the iPad Pro, the iPad Airs in different colors, give me a little razzle dazzle, with the coloring on the Pros. But other than that, I can't really think of anything. I'm pretty sure it'll have a new silicon chip. So that's always good. But yeah, I think if they get the OLED screen, I think that will compensate for the latency, if any, with the screen display. So making it brighter, making it crisper, making it snap better. That's always a plus for me.
I'm a fan of removing the rear camera.
Okay.
I've never tried it, but I'm almost certain, I could be wrong, it would make sense for you to be able to use continuity camera and use your phone's camera if you have an iPhone. Now, if you don't have an iPhone, sucks to be you.
Sucks for you.
But, I definitely would like them to remove the rear camera off of the iPad and give me the ability to use continuity camera, or give me the ability to use a USB-C camera, that if I need it, I can put it on there. Or like you mentioned, use that space or real estate to make the front camera better. I would much rather them do that, make the front camera better, give me a little bit longer battery life, and remove the rear camera, because the bump on the iPad is just like, on an iPhone is tolerable because it's a longer device. The iPad, especially at 12.5, 12.9 inch or whatever the size is, that rear camera bump out is really,
distracting.
It's in a weird place. I would want my iPad to sit flat on the surface. Yeah. So definitely will look forward to doing that. I would like to see, speaking of accessories, I would like to see Apple come out with a line of iPad accessories specific, like a camera that you can attach to it for those who don't have an iPhone, but still want a high quality camera for doing video conferencing. You know,
Mm-hmm.
definitely would like that. Definitely want more battery life out of an iPad. Definitely want it to last twice as long as a MacBook. Maybe not as long as an iPhone, but a considerable amount of time. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not a power user of an iPad, but you know, I'll definitely want to be able to take it around and not
In place of your
and not have to worry
MacBook.
about
Yeah.
and
It
not have to
dying.
worry about battery life, regardless of what I'm doing on it. Right.
Right.
And that's about it for me. OLED screen is fine. I think the screens on there right now are just fine enough. I think the power and the speed is okay. Again, I'm not a power user, so I may not be the best judger of, you know, performance on on the current iPad Pros to where you need more. You know, it's crazy how people say, yeah, they're doing so much with the iPads that Apple is going to mess up their sales with the MacBook. But every time Apple does not do anything in an iPad, they're like, where the new iPads at? All right, well, which one is it? Do you want a better iPad or do you just want, you know, regular? What do you want?
Or do you just want to complain?
Yeah, that too. Just want to complain. So, but that's it for that story. Like I said, we don't know anything about the iPad, you know, no concrete information, but we're guessing that it'll come out in March. So we'll definitely check back in if something is announced in March. All right. Cool. So that's it for the lowdown. We're going to move into second string. And I thought this story was pretty interesting because it kind of denotes what the future of warfare will be. I found this story. I'll put the link in the show notes. I didn't put the link in here in our notes, but I'll make sure to put it up for the actual post for the show. Ukraine is using drones. You know, your drones that we use that we can go to Best Buy and purchase. We can purchase off the internet. They're using the same drones, similar drones, in their battle against Russia. And what they're doing is, it's rumored, or it ain't rumored because there's a video of a Starlink satellite dish. And for those who don't know what Starlink satellite dishes are, they are these satellite dishes that talk to the SpaceX satellites hovering around, orbiting our atmosphere, which is owned by Elon Musk. So reportedly, Russia, I don't know if it's kind of fuzzy on where they got the SpaceX, the Starlink dishes from. I think the story that I saw, it mentioned like Arab supplied Starlink satellites to Russia. But anyway, Ukraine is like, all right, well, we got one for you. And they're using drones as like kamikaze weapons. And they're flying them right into these Starlink satellites. What is about the size of it's maybe like half the size of your traditional satellite that you see, you know,
like dish you like have on the side of houses,
Dish Network, Direct TV, you've seen those. You take that, shrink it down in half, and that's what a Starlink satellite looks like. In the video I saw, this drone flies right into this Starlink satellite dish and it blows
boom
up. Right. So SpaceX and CEO Elon Musk initially denied the reports of Russian soldiers using Starlink dishes. Last week, the company also said if SpaceX obtains knowledge that a Starlink terminal is being used by a sanctioned or unauthorized party, we investigate the claim and take actions to deactivate the terminal if confirmed, which, you know, I don't trust that all that much because like I said, the link I saw the video flying right into the Starlink satellite. So we've got proof now. And in addition, if the Starlink dishes are talking to the SpaceX satellites, then whoever is running SpaceX should automatically be able to see where all the Starlink dishes are in relationship to sanctioned, unsanctioned, military, whatever the case may be, and be like, all right.
And see what's coming down and how often. Yeah.
And turn those things off. You know, I don't know if that's against the rules, but it's a bad look for Russia to be using technology from an American company, right? Yeah. Especially how America, we claim that we support Ukraine 100%. we're giving them money. We're sending all these resources, humanitarian, military money all over to Ukraine to help against Russia. But then also American technology is being used to help Russia. So it's kind of like at the very least, it's kind of like we don't want to get into that, so.
Yeah. And you have to think about anytime Muskie's involved in any of this, we know we've seen some of the comments that he's made, not only on social media, but just in general. And I get the sense that he is more of a fan of Russia than he is of Ukraine. So
Okay.
it could be, one of those things where it's like,
Turn a blind eye.
Yeah, to it. So, I don't know these people, but just based on, like I said, some of the comments that he's made, I would not be surprised, if there was some insight, if there was some insider knowledge of things, because, I can't remember what it was about specifically, so I don't want to say, but I remember there was something floating around in the ethos where he was, I don't think he outright supported, what Russia was doing, but there was definitely some innuendo around, Russia, and as well as some innuendo around not providing Starlink to Ukraine. Like I said, I can't quite remember the article. Let me see if I can find it, but I don't think he was too keen on them using Starlink. But yeah, so again, none of this really surprises me.
Gotcha.
Especially anytime he's involved, because we know how this was back. I just kind of Googled it, and this is the first thing that popped up. Elon Musk's refusal to have Starlink support Ukraine attacks in Crimea raises questions for Pentagon. And this was back on September 11th, 2023, from AP News. But I remember there was some conversation around him having some issue with Ukraine using Starlink or any support for Ukraine with Starlink. I remember something about that kind of floating around, with the news cycle, it kind of came and went, but I remember something about it to that effect, that he wasn't too on board with
Ukraine using Starlink. Yeah. Which makes sense for him to, let me not say that. Let me phrase it a better way. It makes sense that Elon said, no, I'm not going to help Ukraine, against Russia. And then all of a sudden we see a video of Russian soldiers, whether legally or illegally, using SpaceX satellite dishes to communicate and whatever they do, coordinate where they are, find out where the enemy is, whatever the case may be. So yeah, I could see it's plausible that Elon would say, nah, we ain't helping Russia. We ain't getting into that. But then all of a sudden, we're not helping Ukraine. And then all of a sudden Russia kind of gets their hands on some stuff. But let me read this. Let me read this, this other link, this quote from this story. Everyone has heard that the Russians started using SpaceX satellite communication platforms, but so far we have not been able to capture them. In this case, the case where we see the drone dive bombing this dish. In this case, the 71st Brigade of the Ukraine Air Assault Forces spotted the Starlink dish and suspect that Russian soldiers stole or smuggled the dish for use in the ongoing war. So, again, I'm not going to say, I'm not going to go on record. I'm not going to go on record and say, Elon, you better stop, letting Russia use your Starlink dishes. But I mean, we got the video of them blowing up a drone. But more importantly, I wanted to highlight this as a nod to the current and future warfare, by countries. When we think of war, World War I, World War II, all the other wars around that, it's been people flying in, getting dropped off, whether it be boat, plane, parachute, and they are the main people on the front line. Now, I say as far back as 10 years ago when Obama was in office, that was one of his big controversies, that he was using drones to drop bombs, on some of these areas that we were having these disputes with. And that was kind of like a big thing. I won't call it tarnish, but it was a big thing. But this was like when Obama was in office. So that was almost 10 years ago. Yeah. Which is crazy that Obama.
Can you believe it? Like that long?
Yeah. But anyway, fast forward to today. Now we're using drones that I can control with my phone to actually go in there and be used as, tools.
As weapons.
As weapons. Exactly. So, I just wanted, I thought that was interesting that, we think that it's got to be high tech mech robots and all this sophisticated futuristic technology. They're using drones to just dive bomb into stuff.
Roll down to Best Buy. Let me get about 100 of your drones.
Put some C4 on them and, run them into enemy, communications.
Yeah. Because you don't care if they get caught because they're going to get destroyed anyway. So,
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So that is it for Second String. We're going to move into For the Culture. And it looks like you have a Teching While Black that you want us to know about.
Absolutely. This one is a little bit different than some of the other Teching While Blacks, but I thought this was very interesting because when we think of STEM, we think of your more traditional, software engineering or your NASA's or your, those type of things. But STEM can really be anywhere and anything. And so I saw it actually on Twitter and I bookmarked it for something else. And I was like, oh, I remember I had that. So we wanted to highlight Brehanna Daniels. She is the first Black woman NASCAR pit crew member. Okay. So back in 2019, Brehanna made history along with another person by becoming a part of the first female ever duo pit and change tire crew for the Daytona 500. And in 2021, she, along with another Black woman, they both made history by becoming the very first Black women to change tires on the same car at the Daytona 500. So the first time she did it with, she was a part of the pit crew, and another woman was in the pit crew as well. I don't believe that particular woman was Black. I put the link to the article I saw in People about it. But the second time in 2021, it was two Black women working on the same pit crew at the Daytona 500. So I think that's always cool to hear, especially in something like racing. You definitely think male dominated, male dominated, but you have these Black women who are in these pit crews, changing tires, servicing vehicles that are in arguably one of the biggest races that we have, which is the Daytona 500. So shout out to Brehanna Daniels.
And for them trying something new, because like you mentioned, is male dominated, and maybe or maybe not. That's because of being exclusionary, or it could just be just because dudes are in the cars, right? But there are women who are into racing, into cars as well. And, but I don't want to necessarily say it was exclusionary, but I'm pretty sure women getting into something like this, maybe it's not all welcome. So for them to, try and actually succeed at traditionally out of left field, field, hats off to them for trying and actually succeeding. Because like you mentioned, Daytona 500 is one of the preeminent races in the United States and probably traditionally the world as far as notoriety. And for them to be a part of that, that's pretty cool.
Yep.
All right. So the next story, have you been keeping up with Who the Fuck Did I Marry? Have you been keeping up with this?
Oh, God, I wish I wasn't. But yes.
All right. For those who don't know, there's this young lady on TikTok, Risa Tisa, and she did a 50 some odd TikTok
thread,
chronological thread on this guy that she met at the beginning of COVID, moved in together, got married, had an abortion. Well, miscarriage. I want to say abortion. Miscarriage.
Was about to buy a house.
Was about to buy multiple houses. And subsequently, the relationship, marriage fell apart all within a year. I want to say 15 months at the longest, right?
I think it broke down before the year, but to get out of it and everything
all the way out.
Out of the way out, it was like probably about 15 months.
From March 2020 to about June, July of 2021, all this stuff happened. And in her, each individual TikTok, which is about 10 minutes long, TikTok right now says only 10 minutes. So 50 10-minute TikToks of her chronologically outlining the specifics of her relationship in this guy, which, I mean, out of just saying that, it's not out of the ordinary. People meet, fall in love, get married it's known for people to do that within a year, right? It's also equally as known as fast you got married, 1 to 3 years after getting married, you're out of there, you're divorced, right? Yeah. What makes her story interesting is the lengths that her boyfriend / husband, who she named Legion, the effort and the time and the work that went into misleading her throughout every facet of their relationship. So she talks about how when she met him on Facebook and Hinge. They matched on those two dating apps. His name on Facebook was different or not the same as on Hinge.
It was like a nickname, I think.
Something like
one
that.
of them.
They meet in March on an app. They chit chat back and forth, decide to go on a date. You know, he does all the gentlemanly things. She mentions in the story that caught a flat tire. He drives out, picks her, changes her flat tire, picks her up, offers to pay for the tire to be fixed. They go to eat on dinner. They continue with their dinner. He does all the, you're attractive, all that stuff. He plays a song for her. I think I found my future wife, all within like the first date. They talk for about 1.5, 2 weeks. And then that's when we go on lockdown. So within meeting him and then 2 weeks later, they decide, all right, I don't want to quarantine alone. According to his story, he just transferred from California to Atlanta, to where all the story unfolds. And he's got a small, tiny studio apartment that's only temporary because his company is looking for permanent housing.
Yeah.
So you take that and then you add that with, she's got a 3-bedroom, 2-bath townhouse.
Mm-hmm.
So they're deciding where they're going to quarantine. And based on the numbers, small, tiny, temporary studio apartment, 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath townhouse. The decision was made that they're going to quarantine together. Because
he's a VP of a company, right?
Because he's a VP of something at this condiment company, and just him transferring, relocating, things was messed up. She had the more stable stuff, so they decide to quarantine together. So he moves in within 2 weeks of them meeting. Not 2 weeks of them being a couple, not 2 weeks of them being exclusive. 2 weeks of meeting.
14 days.
They decide to quarantine together, which is not surprising because people did not want to quarantine alone.
And people did, and they're not the only one. A lot of people did that when COVID hit because nobody knew what this was or what it was going to look like.
Right.
So people were saving money. They were consolidating. They wanted to be by themselves. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. I guess I just found that interesting because yes, we didn't know what this was going to be, but nobody said, to my knowledge, that when we started quarantine, we're going to quarantine for the better part of a year or two.
Mm-mm.
I think most people just
assumed it was going to be a couple months,
a month or 3 or something like that.
The
But
max would probably be 3 months. Yeah.
right. So keeping that, and this is just personally just going through her story. For them to decide to quarantine together, and then for him to move all his stuff in her house, that was, and after only meeting the dude for 2 weeks, that would have been kind of a stretch to me, right? But he was saying all the things, he was saying all the right things. He appeared, he had all his stuff together. He was
showing her financial statements, so
right.
she had no reason to,
Right. But then shortly after that, I would say a month. She didn't give a particular, she did the chronological thing, but she didn't give specific dates as to when they met, when they decided to quarantine, and when they decided to build a future together. But it seemed like it went from like a month and a half, maybe, after they first met to decide that they're going to build a future together and start looking for houses to be as a couple, a partnership in these houses. So that's where Nika was saying all the financials is coming in. He's showing financial statements. He's got pre-approval letters for mortgages. They start looking for houses. The first house, they were going to do a mortgage, but it fell through because he said something was happening with the interest rates, but something on the inside of her said, I don't know what's going on, so let me do some investigation. So she looks at the listing, the MLS listing. When he said he put the offer in, she would go look at the listing and it would say under contract. So she assumes, oh, that's our contract because he said he put the offer in, yada, yada, yada. Come to find out, she's trying to figure out what's taking so long because the inspection, a whole bunch of stuff, right? So she's like, what's going on? So she goes, looks at the listing off the market. So she's like, what do you mean off the market? What does that mean? We are the people who are under contract to buy this house. She calls the listing agent. The listing agent says it's sold. And the lady who's doing the story gets out, which is crazy, but she got out of the listing agent or the selling agent that it was an older white couple who bought the house. They are not an older white couple. They are a middle-aged black couple, right? So she's like, what's going on? And he says, oh, it's something with the interest rate. I think I'm going to back out because they messing with the interest rate. I don't care if you have never bought a house before. I don't care if you've been a renter all your life. If you do your research and find out that the house that you apparently, allegedly was trying to buy was sold to somebody else without your knowledge, and the explanation you get is, oh, they're messing with the APR, automatically red flags everywhere.
Because you get your approval and your interest rates
you
up
lock
front.
that in. You lock that stuff in. And the fact that he's claiming that they're still messing around with the APR after the house is already on contract, when you lock that stuff in before you go into contract, that should have been red flags. But she says, something inside of me said, this is not right. But I had already made up my mind that I was going to, whatever excuse he had, I was going to let him out of that excuse. So all of the red flags throughout this relationship, I'm not going to go into detail because it's long. But basically, houses, cars, all of these scenarios in their relationship turned out to be a flat out lie. Yeah. Even so much so as the family he was talking to, his backstory.
That was wild that he was just making up talking to people. He wasn't talking to nobody. That was just like crazy.
He made up siblings. He made up
friends.
He made up friends. He made up the fact that his grandparents died from COVID when they had died 10, 15 years earlier. He made up the fact that he moved here from California. You know, he'd never been to California. He said he played arena football, never played arena football. He said he went to college at San Diego State and played football at San Diego State. They don't have no record of him because throughout all of this unraveling, she finally gets his social security number, uses that to run all the background checks, and does all the research and finds out he's not from California. He didn't go to college, didn't play football, didn't play arena football, is not a VP of this condiment company, never worked at Apple because in between he would go back and forth between working at Apple and then working at this big condominium company to where he's the VP and got this assistant. He talked about company cars, made up company cars, the bank accounts that he was showing her that had money in it, because he was paying the bills. Well, let me not say he was paying her when they were living together during quarantine. He was paying her mortgage. He was paying her utilities. Right. Mm-hmm. And according to the documents that he was showing her, she saw he had money, but there was a couple other accounts that he wouldn't show her. So that kind of drew some red flags, but she ignored it. Come to find out, the bank accounts that he was showing her, he would fake log in on his phone and turn the phone around and show her a screenshot that he found on Google about all the accounts that he had. He would take screenshots and show her pictures because he said he came from California. He mentioned he got married and got divorced out in California, but he had got attached to his stepkids. Mm-hmm. He would show pictures of the house that they lived in, all screenshots. You know, the kids that he claimed was close to, he lied and said one of them died in COVID. Every time she would get close to call him out on these things, he would come up with a diversion to get her back on his side. So the grandmother and the grandparents died of COVID. I think that was around the time when she was suspect about what was going on. Oh, my grandma died. You gotta, and that kind of backs people off when death, right? The stepdaughter dies of COVID. He takes the girl to the plot to where his grandparents were buried. They ain't there. They died 10 years ahead of time. And he just worked at the cemetery. So he knew where to take her because he found a plot with his last name on it. So he's like, see, I told you they here, so everything, everything, siblings. He said he got 2 brothers, 2 sisters, and then 2 half brothers from from his father in a previous relationship. All of them, with the exception of one brother who lived in Philadelphia and a twin that lived in Nashville. Those are his only 2 siblings. So he made up these sisters. He made them up. The aunt that she met, because like Nika mentioned, he would fake phone call brothers and sisters. None of the brothers didn't want anything to do with him. Once she tracked down who the real brothers were,
he wasn't even calling anybody. He was just holding the phone up to him, pretending like he was talking. He didn't even call nobody every day. Yeah. Do you know that's the part that with all the stuff is crazy. But the fact that you every single day, hey, such and such said, hey, I mean, that you went through with that every single day for almost a year is. And some of that was just, and that's where she was getting, because first I was like, well, he's not a pathological liar. He's just playing the game to get in your house, to have some place to stay. Because when it all falls down, he ain't got no place to live. He's living in his car. Hobosexual, they call him.
He's a hobosexual, right? So, but, come to find, he ain't got no money. He ain't got nowhere to stay, all these things,
right? Forklift driver, even though there's nothing wrong with driving a forklift.
But that's a big jump from being VP of that company
to being the forklift driver of
being
that
the forklift driver, because she said, his excuse was, well, the plant that I am the VP over, it's that I walk through the plant all the time. So you can't have on nice suits or whatever the case may be. Yeah. But there's a far stretch between you being the VP and you have on like a polo shirt, a button down polo shirt with the logo, and, some nice khakis or whatever, to you going in work every day with tennis shoes and a t-shirt with the company logo. It's like, all right.
I don't care how comfortable or how dirty the place is. You're not rolling up there with
you're going to look like a VP regardless. Yeah. So, but the point I was trying to get at was, well, he's not a habitual liar. He's just telling you what you need to hear in order to
pull you back in,
to pull you back in and to keep you back in. But some of the effort that he was putting in and some of the lies that he was telling, it's like, that's totally unnecessary. Why couldn't you have just told her, I have a brother in Philly, I have a brother in Nashville. we ain't really that close because family stuff, and it's just
Why
tough.
lie? Why just
pretend like
yeah.
right? I mean, he made up. He said he had the only family member that she met was an aunt. Come to find out, that ain't even his aunt. That's just a friend of the mom before she passed away back in 2008. But he lied
That's
to
like
say that's his aunt.
like auntie. Yeah.
Right? Kind of like, but even still, I mean, I've got cousins that are
auntie,
my mother's age that I call my aunt, and just out of respect because they're my mom's age.
The older,
but I don't have any aunties that I ain't related to at all. That's just Miss So-and-so, right? But all that to say, the effort and the levels that he went to conjure up this identity was unnecessary if you just needed to get in her orbit, So I was like, all right, you may be right. He may be a habitual liar because that's just too much work.
It's too much.
Like you said, the phone calls, it'd be one thing for her to say, I've never met your brother. And he'd be like, oh, and then call a friend, and the friend pretend to be a brother, or
he was volunteering this effort. She didn't ask for this,
and it wasn't a scenario to where he needed to do it. He would just be on the phone talking to an imaginary friend and claiming that's his family. I don't know if he wanted to create the image that he's a family man. He's close.
But the thing is, at that point, he was already in. So he didn't have to do all this. You were already in there, bro.
And then eventually, push come to shove, you're going to have to meet them. Let's just say she didn't have a miscarriage and she actually went full term with the baby. Yeah. What are you going to say when nobody shows up to the baby shower and to, nobody brings the offers to deliver food to the house? It's like, that's too much. Just be like, yo, I'm out here by myself. I've got family, but we ain't all that tight.
Yeah.
I got a good job. Why he got to be a VP? Why he got to be in arena football? Why he got to work for Apple? Why can't just be like, I'm doing all right for myself, and then fudge some numbers as far as what you really make. It ain't got to be forklift driver to VP. It could just be
shot for the stars, man, off rip. But the thing is, I think that the takeaway is, because I only watched the one video because it came on Twitter. And I was like, watched all this is crazy. And then I saw all the people talking about it's 50 of them. They're each 10 minutes long. It's like a Netflix series. Somebody called Shonda Rhimes, called Netflix, that type of thing. But what the video that I saw, she was like, I recognize that I missed a lot of red flags. And she took complete ownership of her, part in it. She was like, I was lonely. As women, as Black women, we have these things in our head, or we should be married, we should have a kid by a certain age. She was like, I fell into that trap of, wanting someone. And here's this guy who is giving me all the things that I think I want, that I do want, that I think I need. And, she turned a blind eye to a lot of things because she said, I was only, and people were clowning her and kind of, going, this is red flags, this is bright red, but the thing is, she realizes that. And she said, I saw them and I pushed them to the side or made excuses for them because myself, I was lonely. I wanted a husband. I wanted the house. I wanted the kids. I wanted all these things. And here's this man who's willing to give them to me. And she let it be a cautionary tale, to other women, don't avoid the signs. So she did, really take ownership of that. The other thing is Delta has offered her a Delta One flight for a trip. Hilton was like, hey, you deserve a break, girl. You've earned this. Come let us, take care of you. So out of this, telling this whole story, she's gotten some things because as this story is, and the thing is, she had the receipts for all the things. So it's just what he manipulated her, and what he manipulated her into really is just like, what the, because it's like, are you serious? Because it just seems so, I keep saying diabolical because it is, because he just went so far
Unnecessary.
unnecessary. He just really just went there for no reason.
Right.
So it's one of those things where she's getting, that type of attention. But the other downside of this is this woman ticking among herself to try
As
and
people
find out
do.
who the real Legion. And Risa Tisa told them, she was like, if you're going to do this, she was like, I knew there's a possibility that people would do this. Just give me 24 to 48 hours to like get somewhere safe, blah, blah, blah. And the lady was like, nope, I'm going to do it. I'm going to tell it. And then it ended up being like the wrong guy. And all these people were in his, messages. And he's like, it's not me. I promise. So it's just one of those things where,
But they end up finding the right person though.
They end up finding the right person.
Mm-hmm.
But the girl who, she was like, you see the bags under my eyes. I've just been, nobody asked you to do this, sis.
But
and then she didn't, she doubled down on it when people were like, the girl told you not to do it, or at least to wait until she could get somewhere safe and make sure that she, was not in any danger. And you was like, the world needs to know. It is my responsibility to let the world know.
So that goes back to red flags, right? Because I totally agree that she saw the red flags and chose not to deal with them because of what she was getting in return. She was getting a companion. She was getting attention. She was getting treated well because, again, he was paying the bills. Now, if the brother wasn't paying bills, I guarantee you this would have been a 5 series TikTok instead of a 50, right? So it was. She pushed the red flags aside because it was transactional. She was getting what she yearned, needed, wanted from him, but all she had to do was just ignore these things that should have been big issues, right? They, went to marriage counseling. The marriage counselor is like, yo, y'all should not be married. And if you would have came to me before you got married, we would have told y'all don't get married. I don't remember marriage counselors saying that. They would have probably said, y'all need to take some time, revisit your relationship.
What's the rush? Why? There's no need.
They flat out said, if y'all would have came to us before y'all got married, we would have highly advised y'all not to get married. But all that to say, all around the world to say, ignoring red flags.
Yeah.
I totally believe also that she planned to tell her story in order to get attention, go viral, get all the things that you said. Delta trying to give her flights. Hilton is trying to give her stays. I'm pretty sure somebody's looking at this.
Somebody got to GoFundMe. I think there are people, they've raised like $5,000 or something for her to take a trip or something. Yeah.
It is not far-fetched in our current social media attention era to say, all right, how do I benefit from telling my story? And it wasn't just, in addition to, I'm not going to say it's not, in addition to it being cathartic to tell your story. In addition to, I just want to tell other women to trust your gut, do your research, all those things. In addition to that, she was like, all right, how do I benefit from telling my story? So for her to do that on TikTok, knowing that it would go viral, knowing that it would grab attention, knowing that people may start to poke into her story and poke into her life, period, because this ain't over. Like you said, some lady went and found the dude, first found somebody that wasn't him, then end up finding the right dude, and then saying, oh, I wish I would have told me. That is you ignoring the fact that somebody was going to start poking. You still ignoring red flags. And my thing is, like, I get it, but really, did you learn your lesson? Because
she didn't.
Her telling her story and ending the videos wasn't going to be the end of the story. Because on one hand, she was like, all right, I'm about to benefit from this. She knew people it's impossible.
And she posted the house. She blacked out the house number, but it was light. And so now people are showing up to the house. This one guy is like, I'm living, when you find out you're living in the house that's on a viral. And it's like, bro, you're on the sidewalk in front of the gate. You don't live there. So now the people that actually do live there are going to have all these people running up to their house, taking pictures, whatever the case may be. So
And
she
for
didn't learn
her,
a lesson.
for her to not factor any of that in means you are falling for the same potential pitfalls that you ignored within the story of not thinking this through. You have to, in life, you have to think things through. And
like, why even post? You could just post a picture of the house, even though she probably couldn't have done that because you could do reverse Google images. But I'm just saying,
was
put
giving
the whole listing
and she
and
was
just did
given
a highlight with the number. She left the
she was
street name and everything, zip code, city. She just, kind of blacked out the number. Even though if you looked at it, you could see the number.
And even in the story, she was giving a lot of details, where she was going, what part of town she was on. She would say, I'm not going to say this person's name, but then eventually would say the brother's name or say where they live. They didn't say their name or say where they lived. And she would, if she was going to do this to where minimize the blowback on her, she could have left out a lot of that story, but it
would have still got the same result.
And it would have still, because that's the age we live in. So for her to go through with that and not take into account the possible blowback, have you really learned your lesson? Because this ain't gonna end. We have short attention spans, and we'll change the channel, but somebody will go back through this weeks, months, years later. And do their own investigative research. And do you want to deal with that? She said, I just want to move on. That was just a part of my life. I'm never going to be the same.
But do you?
But is it part of the past if you're going to accept, resources as a result of the story? I don't know. But I guess overall, the fact that she told it on TikTok, it's just a sign of the times, because people have platforms now. And people knows what it takes to get attention, and people knows what it takes to benefit from using their platform and telling their story.
Yeah.
So this ain't the first. This definitely won't be the last. But that's just how things are nowadays in, our social media, content heavy consumer, content consuming atmosphere. So. All right, so that's enough of that. Let's move on to the hookup. Apple recently put out not a press release, but with pretty much similar how, remember how, what's that game? Uno. They put out tweets and saying, hey, I know y'all been playing the way y'all want to play, but you can't put two draw twos on top of each other.
Yeah.
Kind of dispelling the rumors and the myths. Apple kind of did the same thing, was like, look, I know the story as old as time that if you drop your phone, specifically your iPhone, in water, the first thing you need to do is put it into a bag of rice. The thought behind that was the rice will soak up any extra moisture or pull moisture away from the phone, right? Apple put out their little thing that said, hey, do not put your water-soaked iPhone into rice. And the reason why they say do it is because small particles of rice can end up damaging the smartphone, especially if it ends up entering the charging port, which is pretty much the biggest hole in an iPhone. They say other no-nos include trying to insert cotton swabs and paper towels in the connector, or using compressed air and heaters for drying. I've definitely used compressed air to blow into the port of my iPhone. Apple says don't do any of that.
Don't do it.
Right. So my tip for the week is what Apple says to do. If you do drop your phone in the water, you're basically supposed to hold your phone upright, and you're supposed to tap your phone against your hand while the connector is facing down. So if you're watching, you hold your phone upright so the port is facing down, and you kind of tap your phone and let the water kind of vibrate itself out of the port. And other ways to do that is to leave your device in a dry area where there's airflow and wait at least 30 minutes before trying to charge the device. So if you drop it in the sink, in the toilet, in the beach, whatever, in the pool, whatever the case may be, let it sit somewhere and dry, and don't automatically try to plug up your phone to see if it's still working, because that's the first thing you do. You drop it in the water, you plug it up to see if it's still, you click the buttons, you turn it on, you try to charge. Don't do that. Just let it sit for at least 30 minutes to try before you try to charge your device. So that's my tip for the week. If you drop your phone in water, do not put it in rice. Instead, just let it sit for at least 30 minutes where there's airflow before trying to charge your device. So that is it for the week. Nika, if you don't have anything else, I think that's going to do it for this week's show. So tell the folks where they can find you.
You can find me at Tech Savvy Diva everywhere.
And you can find me on the web at Brother Tech. That's BROTHATECH. If you want to keep up with the show, if you want to connect, comment, share, support the show, you can always go to snoboscast.com to get all of those details. And until next week, we are out. Peace.
Bye, everybody.